Hi, everyone. Kim Lloyd here. Welcome to our second session, EFS session today. I'd like to introduce Rebecca, who will be the moderator today.
Okay, Kim, did you have any other comments about REMO?
Yeah, sure. So just a few notes about REMO. When you first log into REMO, you'll see different tables, and I'm sure some of you already practiced this feature. You double click on any open seat in order to move your avatar from one table to another table. If you hover over someone's avatar, you'll be able to see their name and their and any other information they put in their profile. You can always bolster your own profile by clicking Edit Profile and then filling out some information about yourselves for other attendees. You can go ahead and also, when you hear a knock, that means somebody else is sitting at your table. I know it can be distracting to hear this knock all the time, but that means somebody's coming to sit down. And during any of the breaks, you can go to any table. If you want to park your avatar and take a break, you can park your avatar at one of our take a break tables, and then you can turn off your camera and mic at that point in time. If you have any issues as you're navigating REMO, just chat me, Kim Lloyd, and I'll help you out. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I want to welcome everyone to our second session of the 6-week expert forum for expert finders systems. We're going to be together for 2 hours today. I'm Rebecca Bryant. I'll be your MC today. And I want to also start by thanking our sponsors. We have 2 gold sponsors, Elsevier and Digital Science, and we have 2 silver sponsors, Clarivate and Ex Libris. And so we thank them because they're helping us to underwrite cost for this and future Expert Finder Systems conferences. I also want to point out that during our breaks, we have vendor tables to the side where you can talk with our sponsors directly. And as we go out throughout today, I want to encourage people to put your questions in the Q&A as the sessions are going on, and then we'll help moderate those at the end of each talk. And then the last thing is that unfortunately, because of the situation in Texas right now, our 11:40 talk by Melody Moore from the University of Texas Medical Branch is not going to happen because Melody doesn't have power. So we're going to actually use that time instead for networking on the REMO platform, but then we'll reconvene sharp right at noon Eastern time. So with that, I'm going to invite Griffin Weber to join me here on the stage. Griffin is from the Harvard Medical School, and he's going to be speaking about the Profiles research networking software. Welcome, Griffin.
Great, thank you. It's exciting to be at the event this year. Last time I was here, I was at the first meeting in Florida. It was a lot of fun, and I hope our virtual conference can be just as good. I said I'm Griffin Weber. I'm a faculty member in medicine and biomedical informatics at Harvard Medical School and Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston. We'll be talking about the Profiles research networking software. For some acknowledgments and disclosures, I have a Harvard development team. Some of our members are here on the call today. Some of the work I'll be talking about today was developed at our partnering institutions. Among them are University of California, San Francisco, and Boston University. And the work was funded by NIH grants and some hosting from Dell Technologies.
Hey, quick thing, Griffin, are you sharing your slides?
I thought so, but maybe not.
Okay, we're not seeing them, and this is where I'm going to also ask Kim to join me, just in case there's any sort of problem here that we can troubleshoot.
That working better?
Yes, now we can see them. Great. Okay, perfect.
Okay. So 10 years ago, we were funded by Harvard's Clinical and Translational Science Center to create this Profiles website to break down silos in biomedical research at Harvard. there were 24,000 faculty at our medical school, dental school, and School of Public Health who were spread across 33 different affiliated hospitals and research centers. There was no way of finding these people or knowing what they did. So to build this website, we pulled data from various administrative systems like names and affiliations from PeopleSoft. Then we had something called a name disambiguation engine that we developed that goes out to various other websites, pulls in publications from PubMed, grants from the NIH website, and other sources of content. Then faculty can log onto the system and post things like a photo of yourselves, add in education training, or various multimedia content like PowerPoints, YouTube videos, or even embed your Twitter feed in there. But we realized if we just had 24,000 separate profiles, that alone isn't helping people find each other in building communities. So what we did was we developed these things we call passive networks on the side. These are networks that the software can automatically figure out by searching through the content in my profile. For example, it can look at my publications and figure out that the top research areas I worked in are things like medical record linkage and computer communication networks. These are networks because you can click on any one of these items and see other people within the Harvard community that are working on these same topics. They're co-authors, similar people, and other networks I'll discuss in a minute. Any one of these networks, you can click one of these explore buttons and visualize them using these interactive visualizations. So for example, I can click on the concept button and see a keyword cloud of the research areas that I focus on. You can also view these same keywords on a timeline. So there were topics I worked on 15 years ago and stuff that I'm working on more recently. Another network are my co-authors. These are people within the Harvard community that I've worked with before. A simple list is kind of boring, so we can plot them on a Google map to see where across the Boston area my colleagues are located and what are the connections between them. This is a radial graph where I'm in the center, my co-authors are on the inner ring, and the co-authors of those co-authors in the outer ring. I like to call this my network reach because these are either people I can easily reach out to because I worked with them before, or I know somebody can give me an introduction to one of the people on the outer ring. This is that same group of people, though, on a force-directed network graph showing two different kind of clusters of people I work with. The cancer research colleagues I have down here, and then a group of people over here that work with electronic health records and epidemiology. This is another network of similar people. These are people who are connected to me because they do similar kinds of research with me as me, but I haven't necessarily worked with them before. So these may be people I want to reach out to. We have similar interests, but we haven't have a chance to have a collaboration in the past. There are other kind of networks like people who are in my same department. Some of our departments at Harvard are very large. My department of medicine has over 1,000 people. So these are some people to remind me who are my organizational colleagues. If I scroll down, it can even show me my physical neighbors, who are the people whose offices are closest to mine. If I'm looking for a researcher on a grant, it may be easier to work with someone right next to me than someone who's on the other side of the city. With all this network information, profiles can analyze it using things called social network analysis metrics. So for example, I showed my radial graph before. I was talking about reach, the number of co-authors I had plus the number of co-authors those co-authors have. When we look across Harvard University, we see that a research assistant has about 45 people in their network reach, but a full professor has 450. So as you go through your course of your career, you gain larger and larger research collaborations. It varies by department, though. A neurobiologist, ophthalmologist usually work with others in their own department and have fairly small reach networks. Pathologists are providing tissue specimens to lots of different types of studies. So they work with lots of different people and have large networks. There are other kind of metrics that profiles calculates. One is called closeness. It turns out that any two Harvard faculty are connected through co-authorship hops. It's like the Kevin Bacon degrees of separation among actors and actresses, but for scientists. On average, it's about 3.7 hops, but some faculty are much more connected and others are less connected to the rest of the community. Between us is a different kind of metric of connectedness. So with person A and person B, the shortest path between them goes through me. That increases my betweenness score. So people with high betweenness are pulling different parts of the network together. What's interesting are outliers. So people up here, number one, these are often statisticians or like me who do informatics research. We're supporting lots of other teams with the methods that we use. So a statistician might be 5% effort on 20 different grants, so they know a lot of people and are connecting lots of parts of the organization. Number two, these are people who are well connected, but they're not key to the collaborations. These are generally postdocs or junior faculty in the lab of someone famous. So it's through their mentor that they're well connected, but they haven't gotten to the point of their career yet where they're the ones building the connections yet. This is a scatter plot of the 24,000 people that we have in our profile site at Harvard. Every dot here is a different person. Horizontal bands group people at the same hospital. So there's Mass General Hospital over here and Brigham Women's Hospital down here. And vertical bars separate departments alphabetically. The green dot is me. I'm here in informatics at the medical school. The red dots are my co-authors, and the blue dots are the co-authors of my co-authors. So this is showing my reach across kind of an organizational map of the university. There are places where I have a lot of dense clusters, such as the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, but I also have holes or areas where I haven't done a lot of collaboration. I'm associate professor right now. I'd like to become a full professor. I saw those full professors have lots of collaborators. So I can use these networks to make a recommendation saying I should write a paper with David Zurikowski, a statistician at Children's Hospital, because he'll add 205 dots to my graph. It's sort of a silly way of thinking about how I would look for a collaborator, but there is some merit to it. I meet with my mentors all the time and they say write papers, apply for grants, teach more courses. They never say anything about finding more collaborators. But if you have a large collaboration network, you hear about new opportunities, your work gets disseminated faster. It kind of makes sense that having this larger network can benefit you. When we actually look at the data within Harvard, we see that even after you control for things like the field people are in and degrees that they have, the size of a network is predictive of how quickly they get promoted. So even though I'm not going to purely use this count over here and reach out to David Zurikowski, it should be something people think about. And I think people just have not had tools like profiles before to understand their networks or be able to have tools to search and figure out how to expand their networks. Profiles is open source. A lot of other institutions, several dozen in the United States, use profiles. Every site that uses it, they customize it and add lots of new features and change the look and feel of the site, which is great. We developed a website called Direct Experts. It's a federated tool that you can type in a query term, and it sends that out to all the different profile sites, as well as other research networking systems like Elsevier's Pure and homegrown systems and other commercial products. So it gives you counts, the number of people that match at each institution. You click that institution and you leave Direct Experts and you go to that institution's local EFS system where you can view the matching people. One of the benefits of an open source tool is that I can take advantage of other institutions adding new features to the profile site. So I'm going to show some of the more recently added features to profiles that were actually initially developed at other institutions, not within my own team. So for example, Boston University did a lot to enhance the user interface of profiles, including adding various kind of metrics along with each publication that's on a person's profile. So before, when you went to my profile, it just looked like here's a list of publications, but now you can see how many times it's been cited in PubMed Central. You get altmetric scores of how often it's been tweeted about or in social media, the fields the article is in, and various metrics about how translational the article is. Another feature we worked with Boston University on is something called group profiles. So in addition to a profile for an individual, you can now create a profile for a research center, a clinical trial, courses, laboratories, other types of organizations. Just like a person's profile, you can have a photograph, a description of the person, contact information, but on the sidebar, it lists the different members of that group, and you can use the various visualizations to see how those people within that group are connected to each other. This is a feature developed by University of California, San Francisco called Person List. It's kind of like a shopping cart, where as you go through the website, you can search and add people into your list. Then you can come to this page over here. You can view the members, the people that you put together in your list, and do various things like create reports showing where they're located or their field breakdown, or generate email lists to be able to go and contact these people. Another feature that faculty really love is called My Dashboard that UCSF initially developed. This uses Google Analytics to show a faculty member who's been visiting their profile. So they see both aggregate counts over time as well as where the people are coming from. So Harvard faculty are really like to see who's checking them out and are excited about their research. I imagine faculty at other institutions are the same, and is a way of encouraging researchers to log on to the system, look at their views, but while they're there, they can upload additional content to the profile or check the publication lists. Profile is usually used by organizations to create profiles of their members, but you can create profiles of any list of people. So we took this opportunity a year ago to create the website called covidauthors.org. It's based on the Profiles platform, but instead of looking at an organization, we took all the publications in PubMed about COVID-19. Today, it's over 80,000 of them, and generated profiles for each of the authors. There's about 300,000 authors who've written these publications. It's really incredible in that 1 year, this real global community has come together to study this problem. And it's a big reason why the vaccines have been developed in record time. There are a lot of use cases for this website. For example, finding top experts who have expertise in COVID-19 for collaboration on research, policymaking, access to resources or data, or patient populations for clinical trials. When you drill down into a person's profile page, you see a timeline of their COVID-19 publications, as well as other publications they've written, and seeing their different field summary. A lot of the people in here, of course, are from virology or other things directly related to COVID-19, but really there was lots of people from different backgrounds that came together to study COVID-19. I do biomedical informatics research. I know very little about virology, but I have access to lots of hospital electronic health records. It was really critical in a number of large international studies studying COVID-19. So I have a profile in this website as well. When you looked at my profile at Harvard, you saw a network of people focused around the Boston area, but in COVID-19 authors, you see a lot of large global international collaborations that are working to solve this problem. The list of publications that we use for covidauthors.org comes from an NIH NLM website called LitCovid. And the author disambiguation challenge is really complicated in this website because none of these authors have ever written about COVID-19 before. So it's a new topic. They come from many different areas. They're collaborating with new colleagues. So it makes it difficult to figure out which articles belong to which person. The PubMed Knowledge Graph, which was developed at Dell Medical Center by merging a number of different data sets together, was very helpful in creating this website. I'll end with some strategies for success with research networking systems. There was actually a book published by the NIH a couple years ago called Strategies for Team Science Success. It has 45 chapters and 600 pages. I wrote chapter 42 on research networking systems, but I want to point out that the other 44 chapters are nothing to do about research networking systems. It just points out that these systems are just one tiny tool of a much bigger problem. There's a lot of other things you need to do at your institution to make culture change and to really make team science successful. If I look specifically, though, at research networking systems, here are some sort of key points I'd like to convey to you. The first is it's important to identify stakeholders. A lot of institutions have multiple EFS systems, and they kind of compete with each other. It's important to figure out who's kind of the groups at the universities that really should be the business owners and the managers of these systems so that you don't run into this problem. When we built profiles, we identified faculty affairs as the business owner. We're creating profiles for faculty, and it's faculty data, and faculty affairs are the ones that grant the titles to these people. So we thought that they would be the right owners for this. Human resources is important in looking at the data quality and making sure that information is correct. We didn't want faculty to be able to go into profiles and change their name or their addresses and have a disconnect between that and what the university officially has for them. We work with the IT department for the infrastructure for the website. There are critical decisions you have to make, such as who gets a profile and who doesn't. What is the URL that you're going to use for your website? And how do you keep the data up to date? There's some important things with rollout and adoption. One is communication. A lot of sites will download profiles. It's free. They set it up, install it. It automatically will generate the profiles for people and add in all the content. But then they never tell anyone at their organization that they did this, and no one knows the website exists and they don't use it. It's really important to actually let people know the website exists and have a communication plan to encourage people to use it. Part of that should be how to integrate the data into departments and other websites at your institution. The more other systems at your institution use the data from your EFS system, the more important it will be, and people will go to it. Faculty will log in and update their content, and overall, it will reduce the administrative burden for faculty, and that's important. You don't want faculty to have to put publications into your EFS system as well as filling out a separate faculty report for the department. So all these things are important beyond just the actual software product. And as I mentioned, there's a lot more as well that's needed to really facilitate team science and make these things successful at your organization. So with that, I'll stop and maybe we have a couple minutes for questions.
And he asks, can you recommend metrics that allow an assessment of the degree of interdisciplinarity of research?
There's actually quite a bit of research on this. There's different ways to measure this. I usually use something that's based on like an entropy score, where it's used often in like diversity of animals in an environment to look at how spread across different fields a researcher's work is. But there are different ways people look at interdisciplinarity, like how many different fields you work in, or how evenly your work is spread across. So it depends a little bit on the reason why you're trying to measure that.
Okay. So a couple more questions here. I'm going to combine sort of my question, which is the second one here on the list, Griffin, with the one from Don Ellsborg. I'm interested in how university leaders are using this. You did a great job of describing how you and other faculty members can use this. But also, Don's asking if there's one stakeholder like faculty affairs, how can they prioritize other needs for non-faculty? Thinking of this as an institutional asset.
Yes, actually, we were given funding for this through the NIH to help biomedical researchers collaborate with other biomedical researchers. But there was a lot of other ways people discovered that these tools were useful. So faculty affairs, the first thing they started doing is using it to put together promotion committees. If you need 20 people who are similar to the person but haven't worked with them before, you can go directly to our similar person page and you get that list. The deans of the medical school are very interested in collaboration between basic science departments and the clinical departments in the hospitals. So they use that personless shopping cart type feature to put together groups of people and see how departments are collaborating and draw out those network diagrams. I know teachers of courses use this to find guest speakers. Students use it to find mentors. Surprisingly, a lot of patients use this to find clinicians, especially if something like a rare disease. It might be very difficult to find a doctor who has knowledge about that condition. So you create these things for one thing, but sometimes it's very difficult to anticipate all the different kinds of use cases that pop up for these tools.
And then the last question we have here is are there any institutions using the RNS open source product for disciplines beyond biomedical?
Yes, we actually had two versions of profiles running, one at our medical school, then a separate one through our provost office for the other schools within Harvard, like the law school, business school, and so on. We kept these things separate because they're solving different kind of problems. At the medical school, we're using things like articles from PubMed, NIH grants. The one for the rest of the university, a lot of the focus is on books, law cases, business school faculty consulting services, and so on. It's a challenge because you have to, in the non-biomedical world, data aren't always public like they are usually in biomedicine. So you have to look a little bit harder or purchase commercial data for those. But you can load both biomedical and non-biomedical data into profiles and visualize the same kinds of networks.
And there's one last question here, and I think it's quick. The group feature, is it in V3?
Okay. Yes, it is. All the things I showed today are available in the open source code.
Great. Thank you very much, Griffin. Very interesting, great presentation. We're going to move on now, and I want to invite Ann Beynon from Clarivate Analytics and Bruce Herbert from Texas A&M to join me on the stage. They are going to be providing some updates on on VIVO. Welcome. Hey, Bruce, so glad you could make it from Texas today.
Yeah, running the internet off my phone. So I'm calling in from sunny Texas, where the weather is warm and libertarian policies are the way to go, and we highly recommend them for everyone else. Because wow, what a mess it is down here. But no problems, because we're talking about VIVO, and VIVO is the best. So I'm going to share my screen, and Ann and I are going to share this presentation, and that's always exciting. Well, let's do this one. There we go, and slideshow. Great. So we're here to talk today about VIVO, another open source research information management system that is developed by a large international community of like-minded, crazy people who tend to like warm weather and stuff. I am the director of the Office of Scholarly Communications at Texas A&M, and I also have the pleasure of chairing the VIVO leadership group right now. And Anne, my co-speaker, is Clarivate person, and also a member of the VIVO leadership group member. Great. So VIVO is an open source software system supported by Lyrasis, and Lyrasis is a nonprofit organization that's focused on supporting systems and programs for academic libraries across the world. And Clarivate is a certified VIVO partner of our non-open source community. Lyrasis has a number of programs now that it's, or tools that it's supporting, including Fedora and DSpace. You might know those, but also archive space and collection space as ways to preserve our research knowledge and academic knowledge. So let's look at what makes VIVO really unique among all the different research profiling systems out there. And certainly Nice Talk Griffin, and a great system that's being run at Harvard. But VIVO has three main characteristics that it's trying to support. The first is that it's open source software, and so there's no subscription or license fee. It's controlled by or run or organized by this open source community. And if you come join us, you'll have a say in how the future development of VIVO occurs, so that you can make sure that the tool supports your own needs, your own organizational needs, and the context of your institution. VIVO is supported by this open community. Development is driven by the needs of the users. We have members from all over the world, Central America, Europe, and United States, and Canada, and so on. And which I think makes it very powerful, because we have such a diverse group of individuals and organizations represented in our open community, we can really respond to emerging needs at a range of different organizations and different kinds of people. So I think that a strength. And then finally, VIVO is committed to open data. The idea that universities are generating lots of data about their own research enterprise and the activities and practices of their faculty and researchers at their institution, and that we're trying to freely share that data across the world so that it can bring benefit to the academy and to support the translation and societal impact of our work. Really interesting tool, because it is actually quite modular, and so you can combine VIVO with a lot of other tools, both commercial software and other open source tools, and really kind of build something that's rather unique for you and very responsive to the needs of your organization. So what you'll often see is that VIVO instances around the world, like these three at Duke, TIB in Germany, and University of Colorado Boulder, really look different. And they are serving different needs, and the needs of whatever their organization thinks is the most important thing. And so this idea of VIVO being very flexible and customizable is something that the organizations that have implemented VIVO really take advantage of. And so VIVO is used in a lot of different ways, both within the type of RIM systems that often are used here in the United States, like one that Griffin showed at Harvard, but it's also used in CRIS systems over in Europe, and kind of really in very different ways. And so that is a power to VIVO. One of the biggest strengths of VIVO is that VIVO maintains for data interoperability. And this ontology, our data model, or how we define all the various research outputs, the products and the people that are engaged in research practices and teaching practices and all the other things that universities do around the world, means that data can be shared and reused and visualized and combined and done all kinds of things. And so this ontology is really important, and it's one of the core strengths of VIVO. We have initiated a new project in collaboration with EuroCRIS just last month, where we're going to make sure that our two ontologies can share data and are interoperable, so that data can be combined, so we can move beyond just representing the research of a single organization, and we can move on and looking at cross organizations and really try to take advantage of all this great data that we're collecting and organizing. VIVO, as I've mentioned, is global. It's used in 19 different countries. We are constantly releasing new software releases. We're about to release some new software releases. We'll see in a slide in a couple slides just next month. We have we have about 50, 60 people all working on various aspects of developing VIVO and utilizing VIVO in new and interesting ways. And it's really, it's a community that is growing and that has really benefited both from our collaboration with Lyrasis, but also with building new community practices, and has really strengthened and kind of got us all rowing in the same direction. And so it's a real pleasure to participate with my colleagues from around the world. So let's turn it over to Anne, and Anne, just go beep or something like that.
Okay, excellent. I think you could probably hear me. If not, let me know. But that's a great setup there. And you're probably sitting there thinking, well, Bruce just said VIVO's open, it's open source, Clarivate, you're a company. What do you have to do with this? So go to the next slide.
Exactly. I wondered that when I first joined VIVO too. It's like I couldn't figure it out. So go ahead, Anne.
Slide. So we've had a very long relationship with the VIVO community, I think since the beginning, more than 10 years ago, and I've been involved with that. There are a couple ways that we help people with some of the challenges they experience with VIVO. So VIVO, being open source, has a lot of benefits, but there can be some challenges, getting data into it, getting it up and running. So you might be familiar with us probably through the Web of Science, which is our citation index that's been around for a very long time, and associated tools like EndNote and journal citation reports, things like that. So I'm assuming you have some familiarity with who we are as Clarivate in this space. And over 9,000 institutions around the world use the Web of Science. So it's likely that you might have access to some portion of our data. So on the one hand, we are often a data source for VIVO, right? So VIVO is an empty shell, and, that's not very fun. You need to populate it with data. So of course, you're going to want to utilize your internal data sources. But when it comes to things like publications, so journal publications, conferences, books, Griffin was talking about PubMed, which is great, for certain aspects in the biosciences, but you need to look multidisciplinary across all fields. If you're a university, you're probably covering everything from sciences, social sciences, arts, and humanities. Often people look to the Web of Science because we have 21,000 journals in the core collection that do span all those fields, right? And you get clean, trustworthy metadata that's very structured that you can use to populate these profiles. And of course, we have citation counts. That's what we're known for, and associated metrics, as well as other data types like data sets. We have a data citation index as well that we've incorporated into VIVO, pulling in millions of data sets from over 400 repositories, data repositories around the world. So as you can imagine, we have APIs that you could use if you are a user of Web of Science to integrate the data into VIVO. We also do offer disambiguation services. Griffin also mentioned this, that, it is tricky to identify people when you're looking at publication data. So sometimes people ask us to help them in that regard. But on the right hand of the screen, we're also a service provider. So we're what's called a certified partner through LYRASIS for VIVO, which means that we provide services to people who need help setting up VIVO and getting going or doing further customization of their VIVO. So many institutions, just don't have the capacity, they don't have the people or the expertise to set up an open source software like VIVO. So we do offer hosting services for the software, installation, data integration, meaning all of your internal data sources, we help get that set up, like your HR data and so on. But any number of things from either our own proprietary data or public sources or other sources. I just lost the presentation. I don't know if you guys did as well.
Yeah, we did, but go ahead and try to reshare your screen.
Okay. Well, Bruce was sharing, but
Oh.
I can share. I know he's having lots of bad weather. So
Yes.
Let me go ahead and pull up the deck on my side. So just give me a second. I was ready for this possibility. So, okay. And you guys let me know if there's any issue with seeing it, but it says I'm sharing, so
You're
I think
good.
I am.
You're good.
Okay, perfect. We roll with the punches. So we could brand the VIVO site for you. We could train you on how to do this yourself if you want to carry on and work with the software going forward, customize it in a variety of ways. So, that kind of help is there, for people who cannot go it alone, but want to take advantage of this open source software, again, like Bruce said, that doesn't have, any type of license fee and has all the community driven benefits. Another aspect to all of this, and I think you'll see this in some of the other presentations throughout this conference, is, analytics you can run off of this type of data. So it's great to have profiling data, but then, you want to get some intelligence out of it. So what we often do then is also combine these profiles from VIVO with our analytics tool called Insights, where you can then, look at all of this publication data, but run different collaboration analyses and all kinds of graphs and look at not only the impact of the research through citation metrics and normalized citation metrics, but things like, who's collaborating internationally from your departments, who's collaborating with industry, who has, hot papers that are getting cited very quickly, who's publishing in open access journals, et cetera, et cetera. So all kinds of analytics that then you can kind of benefit from if you have, the profiles from VIVO. Okay, so that was just a little bit about where we fit in, but here's a little bit about where VIVO is going. So just VIVO in general as an open source software, I want to tell you a little bit about kind of the direction. So a number of VIVO community users have worked on what's called VIVO Scholar. So VIVO Scholar is a sort of add-on application to VIVO. So it doesn't replace the core VIVO. And Bruce and his team at Texas A&M, as well as Duke and other universities, have worked very hard on this, and it really enhances VIVO. It's the sort of front end that, is lightweight, customizable, has a lot of enhanced search features that really makes the VIVO data work well and be more usable. So that's something that's been a big focus and will continue to be. And if you do use VIVO, you're welcome to check this out. And this is an open source application anybody could use. We are always doing development. So the VIVO community, again, with people contributing from a variety of places, constantly has development and releases. So there is a release coming next month. There's been a lot of focus on internationalization. So having, various languages supported. Like Bruce said, we have many different users of VIVO, in Germany, in Canada, the French-speaking Canadian users, all over the place, different European countries, Latin America, et cetera. We're also working on some other features here. We don't have time to get into it too much, but different ways to search, and also making the software more modular and easy to set up and get going. Another thing that we're working on that might be of interest to you, that Bruce and I have been spearheading, but a variety of community members have been part of this too, is the idea of a light sort of VIVO application. We call it VIVO in a box. So if you're from an institution that's maybe, not producing a ton of research, you're kind of smaller and less complex, and you just want something to get going very quickly, this would be the solution for you. So it really leverages the core VIVO open source software, as well as the other kind of ancillary open source tools that work with VIVO. There's an editor, there's a harvester, there's a variety of tools that have been built around VIVO. And it works with Web of Science, since we're, one of the partners, as well as PubMed, to supplement, since that's freely available data. So it's really meant to be very low cost, if any cost, to get up and running and use things that are already available. So if anyone's really interested in that, we're kind of piloting this as a concept right now. So we'd be happy to, explore that with you if that sounds like it might fit your needs. So how can you learn more? So if you're sitting there thinking, kind of heard about VIVO, maybe this is for us, we'd love to talk to you. So one thing you could do is talk to any member of the leadership group. So this shows you who is part of that group. That's really the governance around VIVO, since it's an open source tool. You can access it through the link here. There's me, there's Bruce, but there's other people as well. So I think any of them would be happy to talk to you about what they do with VIVO and what their experience has been. Also, you can certainly look at who's using VIVO. There's a registry, there's a list of sites on the website that you can check out and reach out to folks that way. I'm assuming most people here are from North America, so I did want to mention we had a North American user group meeting in January that was really great. And these are some of the institutions who presented there. So you can see the range of them, and all of their talks are recorded and they're on the website here. And you guys will get, I think, these slides later on, or we could put those URLs in the chat. But you can maybe check out these short, there are a lot of short talks of what all these organizations are doing. And again, I'm pretty sure, the folks who spoke there would be happy to talk to you about what they've done, and how they were successful in setting up their VIVO instance. And you can see that it's not just universities, there's also government and nonprofits, Smithsonian Institution, et cetera. Also, we have a conference. So the conference this year will be June 23rd to the 25th, virtual, as you probably would expect. So we'll be sending out more information on that. And certainly we'd love for anyone who's interested in any of these topics to join. It's usually a very interesting conference, been going on for a long time. We did have a virtual conference as well in 2020, and all of the presentations from that are available on the website you see here. So again, lots of things you can check out. And of course, if you have any questions or anything, Bruce and I are certainly happy to help you as members of the leadership group, or put you in touch with other people. So I don't know if Bruce came back, but certainly I'm happy to answer any questions that might have come up.
Hi, Anne. I think we lost Bruce. I saw him come back, and So I invite people to enter questions in the chat. Right now, I just have I have one, and it's for me, and that is timeline since for VIVO in a box.
Yeah, so all of the components are kind of there. There's some development going on to make everything kind of work together, and that's why, it'd be really great to have some, some pilot organizations we could work with to really make that happen. But there is a group of developers, from the community who are working on some of those technical pieces. But essentially, it's all there, and it's something that we're just trying to kind of package together in a way that would make it less intimidating for someone coming into the VIVO world to kind of get something up and running quickly.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the community or anybody else?
I see some things in the chat. Does VIVO in a box require VIVO? Yeah. So,
sorry. Thank you.
Yeah. So it runs off of the core VIVO software. Again, there's no cost. VIVO core software, open source. All the other applications that work with it that we mentioned, open source. We are, of course, like we said, looking at this mainly with people who have a subscription to our data already through Web of Science, which is a proprietary source. But certainly, you don't have to use our data. You could use whatever data you want. And another question related to that, cost for VIVO Scholar. No, all of that is open. I think those were all the.
And there's one more. If you scroll down, I missed them too. Some VIVO universities running active data set feeds from Clarivate.
Mm-hmm. Any idea to what level the feed fulfills need? Okay. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. So in terms of the data sets, as I mentioned, like we have a database called Data Citation Index where we aggregate over 400 repositories from around the world, which definitely makes it easier than trying to go to individual repositories. So again, you'd have the metadata about those data sets, just like you would about publications, who authored them, when they were published, what's their subject area. If they've been cited, we know that, like we're tracking the citations as well. So, in terms of coverage, yeah, I think that would be something you'd have to look at individually. We certainly have the list out there of the repositories we work with. It's limited to what's available out there, right? So some fields have more repositories than others. Some countries have more, right? So it's just kind of the nature of sharing of data sets. But certainly if you have other questions, you want to look at that, I'm happy to talk further offline or during the coffee breaks or whatever.
And that opportunity is here right now. So thank you to Anne and especially for Bruce, because it's insanity in Texas right now. We're going to take a 12-minute break. We're going to come back, and it's actually, it's a break, but it's actually time for us to go to the small group tables, do a little bit of networking. The Remo format is just ideal for this. So I encourage you to don't go away, but to actually take a time to maybe visit with Anne or Bruce or Griffin and to learn more about their talks, asking them some questions just like you would in a real conference. So we'll be back here.